Bienvenidos. Welcome to Pa que Sepas podcast. I'm your host, Richie Tovar, and today we're going to be talking about Latino leadership. Today I have two very special guests. Please come on in. Welcome, welcome. How you doing, guys? Good, good. Before we begin, I just want to let the people know who you guys are. So feel free to introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, where you went to school, or anything that you want to share.
Okay, hi, my name is Brittany Gaitan. I was raised in Dallas and I graduated from Emory University. And right now I'm working on getting back into school to get my master's in speech pathology.
Cool.
All right. My name is Henry. I lived in Dallas most of my life. I also went to Emory University, and I currently work as a nurse.
Awesome. Well, welcome, guys. Thanks for coming into the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. Always. So, just to kind of set the scene, do you guys know what you're doing on the podcast today?
I know we're talking about Latino leadership.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
What about you, Henry?
I have no idea. Just got an invite, and I'm just happy to help.
Awesome. Well, essentially, I'm going to kind of introduce the topic. That way, you guys are a little bit more familiar, and then we could get into the conversation. So, a few weeks ago, my professor assigned us a assignment where we had to find a leadership book. And so, if you guys know me, I've had a couple experience of finding self-help books and leadership books. It's something I got into early on after college, graduating college, because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so from the books I read, they were really great, had a lot of good information. But what I found out was they lacked a little bit of who I was. It really didn't mirror who I am or where I came from. And so I decided to find a book about Latino leadership. And this is where I came across Juana Bordas. She's a Nicaragua author, and she written the book, The Power of Latino Leadership. Really good book. Essentially, the book talks about 10 principles, what she outlines as what Latino leaders look like. Some of those principles were gozar la vida, si se puede, juntos, and just the different principles that we see in these Latino leaders that you might not see in other leaders that you might come across. And so today we're going to talk about a few of them. Hopefully we could get through a lot. It's 10 principles, but we'll probably just do a few just to get started.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
So let's go ahead and talk about one of her principles, and it's called personalismo. So basically, the power of trust and human connection. If you guys, I'm pretty sure you're really familiar in Latino culture, relationships come first. I mean, before agendas, before action plans, before any hierarchy, we are reminded that people follow who they trust, and it's built through the presence, through sincerity, through warmth. And I feel like we really see that in the Latino culture, especially with us being very community-based and family-based. Have you guys ever encountered anybody in your community or friends or in school where you found that this person kind of embodied that, where they're having this true human connection? Because oftentimes I feel like we follow these leaders, and they're great leaders, and you might know them by their name and how they lead a group of people, but that's where it ends. You know, you never really find out who they truly are, where they come from, and I feel like maybe you guys might have come across somebody like that in your lives.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, since I actually just started this nursing job, one of my preceptors, I think, would embody that pretty well. I'm sorry. Can you summarize the?
Yeah, of course. So, personalismo, basically meaning they are creating relationships first, and that's something that Juana Bordas talks about. Is these leaders aren't just here to lead; they're not here to check off things from checklists. You know, they're here to make connections with the people they work. And if I could give you an example for myself, mine is my mom. She's very close to me. It doesn't even have to extend beyond my home borders, but she's a person who always led a lot of people in her community. People would always come to her for help because not only did she help these people, but she was always making connections like, hey, how can I help you? I remember one of our friends from the community came by and he's like, I don't know how to get a driver's license. And it was really impactful where my mom kind of guided him through that. And she knew him really well and made that connection. And now that person, we go to their children's like birthday parties. And I never knew this person, but now I know who they are. And they're great people. And sometimes, like, leaders don't have to be these big symbolic people. It could be like the people in your home.
Okay, yeah. And then, yeah, I think the person I'm thinking of embodies that pretty well. She was my preceptor for a couple weeks, but I always feel like I can go to her for any guidance, and not just me, but basically anybody. And then you don't even have to seek her out a lot of the times. She's just there. She doesn't have to be, charge nurse that night. She could just be somebody, on the floor. But she's always seeing and making sure that everybody is able to, get their jobs done without any issues and try to, smooth out any bumps on the road for those people. So I think that's who I think of when you talk about personalismo.
And do you feel like this person really well? It's just they're not just like your boss per se or somebody above you. Do you feel like you've made a really good connection with them?
Yeah, and I'm still kind of new to the job, but I would say, yeah, I do feel pretty close to them. I mean, like, just outside of work, I don't hang out with them, but, in the break room, I get to know them a little bit more. I get to learn about, like, their culture a little bit more. They're not Hispanic. They're from the Philippines.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I've actually learned a lot about the Philippines, and, like, it's very similar to Latino culture in a way. I mean, I know they have that history of Spain being, in the Philippines. So
yeah,
they have a lot of similar foods that I've noticed, and yeah.
And that's pretty awesome because Juana Bordas actually, she gives you a little bit of a historical background before she gets into these principles. And one of them was that the Spanish conquered a lot of the Americas, but not only the Americans, but over there by the Philippines. So she said we had a lot of, in terms of Latinos to other cultures, had a lot of similarities in terms of like food and the way they celebrate and the way they go about their lives. So that's pretty cool. Brittany, do you feel like you've encountered somebody in your life that kind of embodied the first principle that Juana talks about?
I think in my previous job, I encountered that a lot just myself with like a lot of Latino patients coming in and not knowing the language, not knowing English, or not being used to, I guess, that type of care, like physical therapy care. And so I was their first connection.
Well, your first job, you were working at a physical therapy clinic?
Yes, I was working at a physical therapy clinic. I was the front office administrator. And so I was the first person they saw. And so I would try to ease them into the therapy session by letting them know what they were going to do with their therapist. And like sometimes I would just like translate into Spanish for them some of the forms. And I created that first basis of connection for them and then made it just like an easier, smoother transition once they moved back with the clinicians.
Do you feel like not only did you help them out, but you made some connections with those people that were outside of what your job requirement was?
Yes, most definitely, because they had to come back for therapy sessions after the first one. They would come and let me know about their family, what they were up to doing that weekend, and like it was just a different connection than like my other patients who were non-Latino versus them was just like very superficial. And with these Latino people, because I helped them out, they were a lot more open to sharing about their life experiences.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Well, another principle we could get into was conciencia. Juana Bordas talks about know yourself, know your people. From that place of connection, we move inward in terms of not what just happening around you, but where you come from and why that matters. And so I think when I reflect on this, I think about the many pleasures I felt of kind of making those connections like you did at the clinic with those Latino people, but knowing that I have something else to bring to the table that nobody else can, if I am the only Latino there. Because, I mean, we come from different places, and my parents, they're from Mexico. And so they really kind of had this mentality like, there's nothing we can't do and there's nothing we can't achieve, and we're always there to be a helping hand. And I feel like I've always kind of emulated that type of character, and I've adapted it to the way I do my job or how I interact with people. I feel like I've always been a helping hand with a lot of people. Sometimes I like to mess around with people and be like, no, I can't do it. But at the end of the day, I'm always helping them. And so I'm aware that from the culture I come from and the way I am is always to do it because nothing's impossible, and to always be a helping hand. Do you guys feel that way, or do you feel like your mom or your dad ever kind of represented that or mirrored that principle?
Hmm. Conciencia. So essentially, like trying to understand like where you're from, or like you're trying to dig into your
Yeah,
roots,
yeah,
right?
essentially.
Yeah. Honestly, I think
Well,
growing up,
before you begin,
yeah,
Henry, where are you from? Like, where are your parents from?
yeah. So my mom is from El Salvador, my dad's from Nicaragua.
Okay, awesome.
But to be honest, growing up, I feel like I wasn't really ever in touch too much with, those sides. I knew, like, I understood I was Hispanic and stuff, and I think part of it was like, I grew up in a community with a lot of Hispanics, and so sometimes it felt like those cultures merged a lot. So it was hard to differentiate between like, what's Mexican, what's Salvadorian, what is Colombian, and all those other stuff. Because honestly, we share a lot of values. So yeah, sometimes like maybe the most distinguishing factor would be food. Like that's one of the main things that I knew, like, oh, this is Salvadorian, and like this is what I connect with essentially. But yeah, I don't know if that answers or yeah, yeah.
No, actually, I love it. I think you brought another element to the conversation. From my experiences, from the people I've kind of interacted with, especially in college, I've met a lot of people from different places in South America, like Ecuadorians, Colombians, Argentinians, people from El Salvador. So they always had this problem with their identity, not because they didn't know where they came from, but because they were grouped with the Mexicans, especially here in the United States, where if you speak Spanish or you eat this and you, like you said, we have similar foods, they just group them into being like Mexican. And I feel like knowing who you are and where you come from, because they're very different, all they might be in close proximity to another, the countries, and we all might speak the same language, which is Spanish, and have similar foods. We're all very different, and the way we do our cultural customs is different. And so I think that's awesome that if you know who you are, it kind of brings something else to the table, different side view,
Yeah.
might say. Do you have anybody who do you feel like represents this principle, Brittany, or do you feel like yourself maybe where you come from and that kind of shapes you as a leader, or you seen anybody who kind of differentiated as a leader based on where they came from?
So I definitely think I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic high school, mostly probably like 90% Mexican. And then going to college was definitely a culture shock because I was not used to seeing all the type of Latinos around us because everyone in my family and all my friends are Mexican. So it was definitely really cool to see other Latino leaders my age or a little bit older just like using their culture as a voice, because there was only 11% Latinos in my school, so it was pretty small. So you all had to like be yourself and find your way in a school that's predominantly white. So it was just great to seeing like people who were my age being confident enough to be brave to show who they are and like lead others and be like, hey, it's okay to like this, it's okay to do that, it's okay to like your music and still be you and still be able to be a community member of this school. So that's all I have.
No, I think that's great, and I think that kind of touches on the idea that we don't just lead because we can. We lead because we must, and we do this because we understand where we come from, where our communities look like. And I'm pretty sure all three of us had moments where like, why not the people around me could do this when you've seen other communities thrive? And I think that's important part of being a Latino leader, and not just a Latino leader in general, but just a leader from wherever you are. You always want to help the people around you, and I think that's really an important part of us being Latinos. It's very community based. Awesome. So another principle Juana Bordas talks about, and I'm pretty sure we've all heard this, and a lot of people have as well, is "si se puede." And you've heard that in politics, you've heard that in games, like athletic games and sport games. You've probably heard it at parties or maybe in school, but we've heard it everywhere. And this is the empowerment as a call to action. And basically, si se puede is a powerful saying where we say, yes, we can. No matter what the challenge is, we could definitely overcome that challenge. And I feel like that's something in Latino culture that we've just embodied anywhere we go. And I feel like as a Latino leader, whether if it be yourself or somebody you've seen, they've never had the moment where they're like, I can't do this. Because it's either you do it or you don't. And from where I grew up, my parents always instilled that idea, like, you're going to do it. No matter how hard it is, you're going to do it. And like right now where I'm going through physical therapy school, it's really hard, especially being the first person in my family to achieve a doctorate level education. I'm like, can I even do this? But my parents always like, no, you could do it. You could definitely do it. And that kind of changes your perspective of how you think and how you approach things. Like, hey, yeah, I definitely could do it. Do you guys feel that way, or seen somebody that you are really close to be that way?
Most definitely. I also grew up with that saying around in my house a lot. My mom, she would always say, si se puede, todo se puede en la vida. You just have to try. So I think that's a great like pillar in like the Latino culture, because it's some people just come to America for like the American dream. And the main concept is si se puede. Like you just have to try your hardest and do what you can and do it any way you can. And I think that creates a lot of mindsets for Latino leaders of like, whatever you achieve is because you can do it. It's because you have put yourself into it. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I also grew up with that concept, that value. My mom's Christian, and she always took us to church as kids, and she would always say, everything is possible, especially through God. So I think that's something that did fuel me in school and in achieving my career. And yeah, I think it's a really good value to have, because everybody does have potential to achieve the dreams that they have. And it's all it really is a mindset about being able to achieve that stuff. There are obviously outside factors that play a huge role, but there are ways to overcome those obstacles for sure. And part of it is just like it is the community that helps you to overcome that stuff.
Yeah, I definitely believe that, Henry. Like you said, community as well is not only I can, but it's we can. Si se puede as a unit. And I feel like a lot of the Latino leaders that we've seen, and I could give you, for example, like Cesar Chavez. He was a leader in terms of the fields in California where he fought for farmers' rights. And it was not just him saying like, hey, I need a raise, like I need better benefits. It was like, no, we all need it. And I think that's a beautiful part of the Si Se Puede, because it's not just individualistic, which at times here in American society, you could say a lot of people are like very self-driven, and it's a good thing, people try to achieve their own goals, but at the same time, I feel like us as Latinos, we're not only achieving our goals, but we're achieving our goals to the benefit everybody else around us, right? It's never just for ourselves. Awesome. And so we could hit the other principle of juntos, which Juana Bordas talks about togetherness. It's not just individualistic, but it's we over me. And as we rise, we don't leave others behind. I feel like that was something that was instilled in me also by my community. Growing up, I went to a elementary school full of Hispanic students, and you feel like you never saw a student fall behind. And when I mean fall behind, like everybody was striving to be the best, and if you were failing at something, either a teacher or a student was there helping you. I feel like I never saw people doing things on their own just for their benefit and trying to reap the benefits from their accomplishments. It was always like, hey, we're gonna do it together. If it's gonna take a while, we're gonna do it, and I think that's an awesome thing about Latinos in general, being very unison with the people that they're with. Um, do you feel like you guys have used that in your life, in the organizations you've been in at school, or maybe the sports teams you've been in, or anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think this point is one of the things that is like a huge driving factor in my own like ideology and political ideology as well, because I'm a firm believer of collective bargaining, unionization, that kind of stuff. I believe that the workers would benefit the most when we put our efforts together, and we come to an understanding that we have the same interests. We want a better life. We want better pay. We want to be able to take care of our family, that kind of stuff. And I think this is one thing that where we would all benefit in understanding that we all drive each other up. There's a saying, and I'm forgetting how it goes, so I'm probably not gonna say it there. But but essentially, yeah, together we're better at achieving our goals. I always talk to my friends because especially like nowadays, this political climate, people, it can get pretty, chaotic. But I do like to, at least understand like where are my friends thinking, who do they, what do they want to do in their lives, that kind of stuff, and how does that tie back to the, political climate nowadays. And I always, because it's very easy to be like, I really don't care. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just like to instill in them that, we all have a common interest of, reaping the most benefits from the labor that we produce, because ultimately that's where the value lays. We provide value to the companies that we work with. So, yeah, I think that's
No,
one of the,
I love that, Henry. Like, I feel like that's something I also struggle with in terms of the people sometimes that I have around me like to disregard all the problems because, like you said, it's easy, but like you said, we need to do that together in terms of kind of finding ways to um, uplift each other, whether that just be in politics or whether it be in their employment and what they're doing in their lives or and just like emotionally. I feel like it's hard to do that sometimes, but I feel like, and I could hear it in your voice where you don't give up. You don't give up on your people, and I think that's beautiful. And I feel like that's something that a lot of Latino leaders like yourself, like they just don't give up on the people around them, even when it gets tough. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I think Juntos definitely is a big pillar in the Latino community. I see it also as a very family oriented pillar. Like, for example, like it's we over me, right? It's not just me going to school. It wasn't just me going to undergrad and trying to get my degree and better myself. It's me bringing my family with me. It's me trying to create this paved road for my family to continue on. I am a first generation student, and I'm the first one in the family to get my bachelor's degree. And so I've now set, thank you. I've now set like this standard, or like I guess this next level of achievement for our family to follow, for them to continue to do, for all my cousins who are younger than me to try to achieve, because if I can do it, they can do it. And then it's also just really hard going to a school and like being the first one in your family. You have no one to like ask questions about, like, or what to expect or what it's like, because no one in your family's done it. So it was very, very important to have like my family and my home friends be there to support me, or like just check in on me or call me, be like, hey, what can we do? Or can we send you some food? Or like, are you have time for like a FaceTime or a phone call? Or like, it's not just me, it's them with me. And then even during graduation, like everything I do for them. And everything I do, it's for us to be better and do better. And we are creating generational wealth.
Yeah, and I think I see that every time people graduate, especially the Latino culture. I see them say, thanks, mom and dad, or they're always saying, thank you, grandma and grandpa. Like, it's never like, I did it, it's like, we did
We
it.
did it.
Yeah. But I think that's beautiful in terms of you helping your family. You as a leader are doing that, and hopefully you could influence a lot of people, especially your family, kind of following your same footsteps. Because we are the leaders in our family, but we also could be leaders outside of our family because you never know who's watching. And I definitely feel this when I was volunteering at this elementary school. After my college classes, I would go every afternoon to help kids study and kind of improve their grades because they were having a hard time kind of navigating through school academically. And I never did anything like that I feel was like out of, amazing or anything like that. I literally just sat down, helped them out, asked them how they were doing, see what home was looking like. And I was just making those relationships and trying to help everybody out. And I tried to give everybody time. And there was like 12 kids in there, and it was just me and this other guy sometimes. And I feel like that really changed them. But it was just me being me. And I feel like that came from where I grew up from, just like you did,
You're
trying.
doing personalismo.
Exactly, but anything else you guys want to share in terms of leadership from being like a Latino specifically? Anything that makes it different from other leaders that you see?
I would say to be a Latino leader means more than just lead yourself, but leading others with you. I think that differentiates us from some American principles, which is very, like you said, self-driven. You can still be self-driven and still be for the community. So I think it's very important to just remember those. Remember where you come from. Remember what brings you to where you are, and keep helping the community.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like there's more of a collective um, ideology there where, we want to uplift not just ourselves, but our family and our whole community because when they thrive, we thrive. And yeah.
Awesome. So I'll just leave you here with a couple of things that we talked about, which was, the si se puede, juntos, conciencia, personalismo, all these different principles that we talked about today. And just know that we are changing the world in terms of how we interact with people and communicate with people because of where we come from. And remember that we are going to rise together. We, not just I, but we as a group. And just remember, just keep leading with your hearts and don't forget where you came from.
Si se puede.
Yeah.
Sí se puede. Y se puede juntos.
Y se puede juntos.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in with Pa Que Sepas podcast. We'll see you next time. Peace.